All right, let's dive into one of the most watched and maybe one of the quietest leadership transitions in business history. We're talking about the subtle but really significant shift that's happening right now at Berkshire Hathaway. You know, for 6 whole decades, Berkshire's annual letter wasn't just some dry financial report, not at all. It was a masterclass from Warren Buffett himself. It's how he taught the world about investing, about business, and about the special sauce that built his empire. The thing carried enormous symbolic weight.
And that leads to the big question, right? What happens when someone else finally picks up that pen? When Buffett's successor, Greg Abel, wrote his very first letter, you can bet the entire business world was reading between the lines, looking for clues. How is he going to signal a new era for this legendary company? Let's break it down.
Okay, first things first. To really understand the change, you have to understand what came before it. We need to get a handle on the foundational philosophy that made Berkshire, well, Berkshire.
For Buffett, the job was pretty simple in concept, but absolute genius in how he did it. He was the master capital allocator. His main job wasn't to worry about the day-to-day operations of Dairy Queen or Geico. Nope. It was to figure out where to invest Berkshire's mountain of cash to get the best possible long-term returns. And this famous line from Charlie Munger just nails the company's management style. Extreme decentralization. Basically, once Buffett bought a business, he was famous for just leaving the managers alone to do their thing.
And there's this classic story that shows you exactly what that means. Someone at a shareholder meeting pointed out that a Berkshire-owned store didn't accept cards from American Express, a company Berkshire was heavily invested in. Buffett's response was perfect. We don't interfere. The managers run their business, I allocate the capital. End of story. So with that foundation in mind, now we can really see the contrast. Greg Abel's first letter starts to weave in a new phrase, and with it, a whole new focus. It really signals a fundamental shift.
And here it is, the heart of the change, where Buffett's identity was completely wrapped up in capital allocation. Abel is bringing in a new mantra, operational excellence. It's a subtle change, but it's a powerful one. The focus is shifting from what you own to how well you run what you own.
So, just how important is this new phrase to Greg Abel? Well, in his very first letter as the guy in charge, he used the term operational excellence 6 different times. Now, get ready for the other side of that coin. In 60 years of writing that famous letter, how many times did Warren Buffett use that exact phrase? 0. Not once. That's not an accident, folks. That is a signal.
So what does he actually mean by this? Well, it's about a relentless focus on getting under the hood of all those businesses Berkshire owns. It's about tuning them up, making them more efficient, more competitive, and just plain better at serving their customers. It is a much more hands-on approach to improvement.
A new philosophy is one thing, but where's the proof? Let's actually look at the letter itself to see how this new focus is already starting to play out in the real world. We can spot 2 major clues. First, Abel did something pretty rare. He publicly challenged one of Berkshire's biggest companies. And second, he made a move to build out the famously tiny corporate headquarters. Let's look at each one. First up is BNSF Railway. Now, for decades, Buffett was famously, almost religiously, against criticizing his managers or their companies in public. It just wasn't the Berkshire way. But in his letter, Abel does just that. He puts BNSF on notice for everyone to see, writing, "We will be disappointed if we do not deliver a substantial improvement." Whoa, that signals a totally new level of accountability. The message is clear. Expectations are going up. Okay, the second clue is a little more subtle, but trust me, it's just as important. And it all has to do with who's working at the home office in Omaha. Berkshire's headquarters is legendary for having a tiny staff. I mean, Buffett was proud of avoiding corporate bloat. So when Abel announced they were hiring the company's first ever general counsel, it was a huge deal. It shows he's willing to build a bit more of a traditional corporate structure to manage the sheer size of Berkshire today. Now, it is really important to frame this the right way. This is not some sudden, radical break from the past. What we're seeing here is a carefully managed evolution. And that's because Warren Buffett is still there. As Abel points out in the letter, Buffett is still coming into the office 5 days a week, helping to guide the big decisions. This is a handoff being guided by the founder himself, not some abrupt change of command. So, what does this all add up to? The key takeaway is that Berkshire is clearly, but gradually, evolving under Greg Abel. We're seeing this new, stronger emphasis on operational excellence, we're seeing more explicit performance goals, and we're seeing the slow build-out of a more formal corporate structure. It all signals that a new era is beginning. And that leaves us with one last fascinating question. As Berkshire carefully navigates this transition from its legendary founder to the next generation, they're essentially creating a new playbook. Is this it? Is this blend of preserving the old culture while demanding a new level of operational improvement? Is that the model for how other great founder-led companies will handle their own futures? It's something the entire business world is going to be watching very, very closely.